You were like kind of the D&D expert who went over to Larian
for Baldur's Gate 3, which is even crazier. A lot of that went
into Baldur's Gate 3, and so we got to, collab and do a bunch of work there. So it was a wild and crazy time.
I don't think there's a single D&D player I personally know that hasn't interacted with the content that you've written, and I think that's so cool. Hello and welcome. My name is Jeremiah, and I am with...
I'm Ari Levitch.
And Adam
Lee.
Perfect. And I'm Jeremiah Crofton, and we are the writers of Obojima. And why are we saying our full names? Because as of a request from the community, we're going to talk a little bit about how we got into the industry, how we started creating D&D and gaming things, and the process in which we took to get to these spots. So I'll say this much. My story is significantly less cool than their stories. So I think I'm going to start with mine, just because it's quick and short and no one will care, and then we can get into the more cool ones.
We care, Jeremiah.
It's true. It's true. Well, thank you. That's
your stories.
Awesome. So yeah, I had a ton of random jobs and growing up and doing random stuff, and eventually I led to a position at Dark Horse Comics, not doing anything exciting. 2014 shows up, the player's handbook, and I'm pumped. 5E's out, and I'm in it almost instantly. Like a couple months go by, and I start playing. Ironically, because of them, but I wouldn't go on to figure that out later. So it's awesome. I'm really enjoying myself, and I've got some buddies that I'm playing D&D on a regular basis with, and at a certain point in time, the concept of starting a project comes around, and we get a collection of friends together, and we push to make a product called Dungeon Craft, which is 2D terrain, which in 2019 was pretty new. Like, not a lot of people are doing that. This is before the boom of third-party creators. And so in 2018, we're figuring it out. We get an artist friend. He's on board. We make some cool stuff. And we take it to a convention, a local convention. We get a buddy to invest $10,000, which was a ton. That's all we had. And we put that all into getting it printed locally, which was so beyond expensive. Yeah. It was $19 a book to get it printed locally. And it wasn't a book. It was loose leaf paper that we had put in a plastic folder and sealed.
Wow.
And we took it to a convention. We spent $1,400 to get a booth at Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle.
Wow.
And we took it there and we sold out. We sold all 400 copies at $30 a piece. So we weren't making any money really, but it was enough for us to go, this is worth it.
Yeah.
And so we took all of that money from the convention and we launched a Kickstarter with it. And from there, the best I can say is we got lucky. We did okay for the first 30 days. This is back when Kickstarters we didn't know 30 days was the best, so we launched it for 45 days. The first 30 days were okay, and we were sitting around 120. We did influencers and worked with YouTubers and things like that, and we were like, okay, this is where it's going to be. All of us are going to have to keep our jobs, and we're just going to have to work on this. I'm still working at Dark Horse at the time. As I'm driving between buildings and things like that, I'm on the call with my friends and other partners trying to figure out what's going on and make plans. And then in the last week, our advertising just really kicked in, and we skyrocketed from 130,000 to 360.
Do you know what happened?
Just all of a sudden, the advertising that wasn't really working, we refigured some stuff, we put in some new things, and it clicked like that.
Wow.
And we skyrocketed, and that was amazing. And then all of a sudden...
So 45 days is correct.
So 45 days was correct for us. Yeah. And so then all of a sudden it was like, well, let's go for it. So we all quit our jobs. We all took really, really small... I was making like nothing. Like not a lot of cash, And so we did that for a while, and we were like, this is awesome. Then we, had a really big first Christmas year, and we were super pumped. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, like right after, like months later. And so we launched another Kickstarter, and that was more successful, but we had a big struggle. And then we spent a long time just pushing through COVID and trying to exist. And eventually things turned back around as we kind of got through the end of it. And that's where, in between that, we'd launched a bunch of different projects. I'd come up with different designs, journals and cards and dice sets and things like that. And all of those had varying bits of success, and those are great. We still sell a lot of those products. And for me, I'm making it up. I didn't have any design skills prior to this. I would say an okay or an average vision of like conceptualizing products at that time. And I'm taking what I think is cool, which is not the way to do things, and I'm making them into products. I go, I think this is a cool idea. Let's do it. Also in that time, we launched different versions of Dungeon Craft. So, we have 6 or 7 different books. And eventually we get to the point where we're like, okay, we got to retire Dungeon Craft. Dungeon Craft is great, but it's really, really expensive. We can't afford to make it, and we need to move on to something bigger. We need to find a new thing. And that's when the concept of Obojima came. I have buddies. I had met a lot of friends throughout the industry by this point, and all of them are making 5e content rather than what we were doing, which was just accessories. I talk to my business partner and I say like, hey, let's try for something different. Here is something that I think will work. And this is where I went, I'd shifted. Went from a baby boy to a slightly bigger baby boy and realized that like, if I'm going to make a product, I need to make a product that people care about. And so I took what I thought were concepts that weren't done, and I took genres and existing media that I thought people were fans of, and I said, let's pair it with a amazing piece artist, and let's see if the culmination of audiences matched with the pure desire to have new D&D content would work. And it happened to work fairly well. And so that's where it came through. And then from that, I took all of my skills of playing D&D and being a writer for D&D in my own personal games for the past 10 years. And I said, hey, that's not enough. So let's hire real writers and put my efforts into coming up with world concepts and mechanics, and then really focused on generating the content with the assistance of skilled individuals, which are over here. So I kind of went through things really quick, but to kind of sum it up, I got really lucky. And then I went through a lot of hard times during COVID and pushed through. And then really the lessons that I learned from that were what it takes to make products that people want. And that was a long time to discover because I didn't know. I got lucky at the beginning by making a product, but that I needed to evolve with the times, especially as more people created stuff. And so really my skill sets over getting into this was just hitting it at the right time and making products, learning how to make products over the years.
Well, I just want to say that, now that we've gotten to know you over the last year, I just got to say that you might say it's a lot of luck, and I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that, but it's also like positioning yourself to like when opportunity happens that you're ready to kind of execute. But we talk about this quite a bit, just your willingness to do things like go out on a limb, quit your job, and try this is like that. There's a lot of like force of will. It's like, well, okay, like there's no like. It forces you to think about things creatively. It forces you to find creative solutions on how to keep this company afloat. And I don't think that's something that that's definitely not in my disposition to do something like that. So that's something that I'm impressed by. So I want to share that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's my story. I'm going to keep it short because again, there's more interesting story over here. And so I'd love for you to tell the community a little bit about yourself and your past experience. Oh, the double.
Take it, Adam.
Well, Ari and I's stories overlap a bit, but I was in Cleveland, Ohio at the time, and a friend of mine, Matt Cavada, who is a magic illustrator, he was doing freelance for them. He wound up getting a job at Wizards, and he went in-house. And he called me up, and he's like, dude, like, you want to write for Magic? Because he knew I was a writer, because I used to write greeting cards, like the thing about greeting cards is you have to take a giant concept of like if you're writing a Valentine's Day card, you have to write like, here's how much I love a person, or here's what, you know, our relationship means to me. And I have to distill that giant feeling down to like 2 lines, and it has to be snappy. So when you open the card, you're like, oh, that's sweet. Encapsulates everything I feel about my loved one. So magic, cut to like flavor text, is the same thing. You've got 2 lines on a tiny little magic card. And so I was able to really write a lot of really good flavor text. That was in 2005. My first magic set I worked on was Cold Snap. And then throughout that time, you know, Matt, who was in the creative team at the time, he was like, hey, can you write like world building stuff? Can you write like website stories and stuff? And so I was like, great. And I write all that stuff. So I wrote for a long enough time till about 2010. So about 5 years. And that's when Wizard started to grow as a company. And so they expanded the Magic creative team, and they said, hey, do you want to come on? We've been liking your stuff. And I was like, great. So then when we came a time when we were like, we're going to hire on somebody else, and they said, oh yeah, we've sort of got this one person. And I was like, have you interviewed Artie Levitch yet? And they're like, no, we're kind of think we're good. We've got the, and I'm like, you've got to do it. And then they came back to me. They're like, yeah, you're right. Ari was amazing. And I'm like, yeah. So that's how, you know. So
I hope my mom is listening.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to go for it. I got it in the middle of the school year. And so I had to tell my kids, I'm gotta go.
Gotta go be a nerd, man.
Yeah. But I was also the teacher where kids were coming into my room every day, playing D&D, playing Magic, reading comics. So a lot of them were like, that's really cool, Mr. L. So I took off, moved to Seattle, and it was on a contract. I left my teaching job, and I was like, okay, if this works out, great. If it doesn't work out, I'll find something else. But I knew that I had to try.
You know, you would get submissions from a bunch of different freelancers on cards, and just somebody is always nailing it. And Ari's name was always at the top of just like somebody who got it, you know? And so every time I'd read it, I'd be like, oh, that's so great.
And I ended up getting hired on full time. And, Adam and I got to collaborate quite a bit on Magic early on, and, got to really, really hone some skills on world building and what it means, not just to world build for a linear story, but to world build for a game, and what are the constraints of a game, and learning all of that kind of stuff.
We built worlds every year, which was so fun.
There's never been anything like that, like in my career.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk a long time about what it went to create a Magic world. We worked with some of the most amazing fantasy artists in the business. Super creative time, super fun, super stressful, all the good stuff that you want in that kind of experience.
And then not too long after that, Adam leaves and he goes over to D&D.
Basically, as they're wrapping up 5th edition, they were working on the DMG and I think the Monster Manual when I came over. And because Richard and I had come over from Magic, we decided to apply a lot of what we'd learned on Magic world building to D&D. And so when you get like Storm King's Thunder, we're like reimagining giants, and you get to Curse of Strahd, we're reimagining Barovia and world building outside.
Richard and Adam really lobbied for me to go over to D&D because we'd still chat, and we're always like bouncing ideas off of each other at lunch and everything. And so finally an opportunity opened up on D&D, and I just kind of slithered over there and was there for about 4 years. Mm-hmm. And again, we got to collaborate on a bunch of adventures and some world building stuff and just have a lot of fun.
What was the first thing that you got tossed into when you got hired?
Oh gosh, what was the first project?
Dragon Heist.
I wasn't on Dragon Heist.
You were in on talks though.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was actually way before I got hired. I'd gone out to lunch with you and a few folks on D&D, and like there was just like the earliest ideas of Dragon Heist were coming together. Like, oh, what's this going to be? And I was just jamming just because I'm like, this is the type of jamming I don't get to do. Like this is totally different.
That was a pre-interview though.
Really?
Little did you know.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It was like, because I was like, sort of like, hey, you want to hire Ari? And they were like, well, what's this Ari guy like?
Oh, wow.
I was like, well, let's just take him out on a jam. And then just like, sure enough, bam. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
And
it's made my day.
I feel like Dragon Heist feels like it's more modern, like it like came out. Oh, it's just Dragon Heist came out a few years ago. But that was for you guys. Dragon Heist was how much like
a long time ago.
Yeah. Like when were you working on Dragon Heist?
'Cause I joined in January of 2018.
So it'd be
in D&D.
2017, 2016.
So we probably had that chat in 2016 if you were just getting the early stuff, because that was like nothing was known about it other than like this is going to be in Waterdeep.
Yeah.
And it's going to be it's going to be
3 years later Dragon Heist comes out, or 4 years later.
Well, it's an 18-month cycle.
18 months.
So
yeah.
Was Dragon Heist in 2019? Is that when it came out?
God knows.
2018, I think, is when it came
all
out.
blurred to
Because
me
I think
now.
2019 was, maybe I'm wrong. 2019 I thought was Avernus. Descent into Avernus.
Yeah.
That was the
2018,
first
2019
book.
was Descent.
2019 was definitely Avernus, and then Ghosts of Saltmarsh came after that.
Yeah.
Because
Which was
I
not
was
the
banking.
main, because that wasn't the main adventure. So there's like the tentpole adventure that comes out every year, and so Ghost of Saltmarsh was
the secondary thing.
The secondary thing, yeah. The first book I got to work on, the first adventure book I contributed to, which Adam led, was Descent into Avernus.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun.
That was great
to work on. And then I worked on a lot of like the magic crossover stuff, like Guilds of Ravnica and Theros. I worked on Dragonlance and
Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Wild Beyond the Witchlight and Candlekeep Mysteries and a few of the like the other like
Shemshimes.
Shemshimes Bedtime Rhyme and a few of the player facing material books and stuff like that.
Which, if anybody hasn't played Shemshimes Bedtime Rhyme, you got to do it.
It's great for Halloween.
It's awesome, yeah. So that was a great time, and worked on D&D until 2019, 2020, and then I'd moved off of there to move into like franchise level. So talking about like, Magic and D&D as a franchise. So like movies and media and all that stuff. And then from there, that's when I decided I was going to leave and go do new stuff. And that's where Ari and I's paths merged off together. We both formed a company called Mysterious Alchemy, and developing IP, intellectual property. So basically we go in to like companies and help them build worlds. And it was like for tabletop stuff, but also for video games, and worked with a bunch of great companies and met a lot of great people. And then that was where our paths crossed, because we had done work for Ghostfire, and you knew the Ghostfire guys.
I was friends with Matt over at Ghostfire. And I was sitting after Obojima, after the success of Obojima, and I was like, oh man. And I'm like looking, ironically, it was like, I was sitting there and I was like, I need some writers. Let me open up a book. Witchlight's right here. Here are the two names at the top of this list. Let me look at these guys. And we jammed on Obojima that first session for like 4 hours, 5 hours. And it was perfect. I was like, you understand it instantly. You know exactly what I'm going for. It is kind of nuts that like over the years I've been playing through, like I based products off of things that you designed. Two of my the second Dungeon Craft book, Hell and High Water,
oh man,
was based. I was like, well, people are going to play Descent into Avernus, and Ghost of Saltmarsh is coming out, so I need to have terrain for that. The second product I designed, the first ever Kickstarter we launched, was based off of things that you two did.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a crazy team that we brought in to do Descent, and we had Ari, myself, Richard Wooders, who is the concept artist, and then we assembled a team of artists for like Alexei Briclo, who works on Marvel.
Yeah.
He's done like Thor Ragnarok and all that kind of stuff. We had Max Dunbar, who had done, tons of comics. He did the Batman Neon, was it the new Batman?
Yeah, he's been, I don't know if it's been now, Batman Beyond. He did a comic for that. But you've seen his pencils and all that kind of stuff, but his concept chops are insane.
Yeah. And then we had Jim Zub come in for 3 days to just kind of jam with us. We had Darken to do the Blood War scene, which is bonkers if you've ever seen that one. And then, just, a bunch of great freelance writers like Intercasso. And
well, you were also working alongside Lariat Studios, right? At the
that
time.
came later.
Yeah, like at that time.
You were like kind of the D&D expert who went over to Larian.
Yeah, Larian. That's it, not Lariat. Larian Studios.
Got to work with them a lot, and
for Baldur's Gate 3, which is even crazier.
Went into Baldur's Gate 3, and so we got to collab and do a bunch of work there. So it was a wild and crazy time. We got to work with Jared Blando creating the map. It was a concept that these icons on the map were little adventures in themselves. And you could just see this crazy looking map. It wasn't to scale. It was impressionistic. And you could just be like, what's that weird thing? And here is, just this, giant 80-foot sword that's stuck in the ground. And you're just like, it's this mystery. They hadn't figured out Avernus at that point. So that was actually some new world building. Like Ari was saying earlier, a lot of Dungeons and Dragons is like, okay, do Waterdeep again. It's like you look over all the editions and you see like, oh, the people have thought about it a lot, and you're kind of rehashing some of it. Some of it you're, building on top of it, or like, Curse of Strahd was taking Ravenloft and then building Barovia around it. So
it's pretty crazy. I would say, I think both of your accomplishments are, to me, I don't know why I immediately thought fangirl. I feel like I could have said fanboy and it would have. I'm a huge fangirl. But I am. I'm fangirl over your accomplishments, and just I feel, cutting back. I don't think there's a single D&D player I personally know that hasn't interacted with the content that you've written, and I think that's so cool. And I'm so excited and gracious that this is the team that we were able to build out for Obojima. And I think it's going to be amazing. I think everyone's going to love it. That being said, thanks for joining us. If you want to hear more about like the back end, kind of businessy / history side of the company and writing Obojima and other things like that, just let us know and we'll do more videos like this.
Totally.
Cool. All right. Something. Follow us on YouTube. We have social media. Bye, everyone.